They came as God's soldiers, but they left as something far darker. Imagine the clash of steel and the thunder of war drums suddenly giving way to the crackle of roasting flesh. Picture knights sworn to the cross crouched around cooking fires, not turning spits of lamb or goat, but of children. This isn't fiction. This is what happened in the Syrian city of Ma'ara in December 1098, when starvation turned Crusaders into cannibals. The chronicles record it, though most history books prefer to turn away. But in the smoke and ashes of Ma'ara, we find one of the most disturbing moments in medieval history, a moment when hunger devoured morality and knights of Christ became butchers of men. By the winter of 1098, the First Crusade had already dragged thousands of European knights, foot soldiers, and peasants across continents. They had stormed Nicaea, taken Antioch, and bled the land dry. When they arrived at Ma'ara al-Numan, a walled Syrian city between Aleppo and Damascus, their supplies were nearly gone. The siege began in late November. For weeks, Crusaders hurled stones and ladders at the walls, but Ma'ara's defenders held firm. Inside the city, the Muslim population hoped relief would arrive. Outside, the Crusaders gnawed at roots, leather, and even grass. Finally, on December 12th, the walls were breached. The Crusaders stormed inside. What followed was no ordinary sack. Radulf of Caen, a chronicler traveling with the Crusaders, described the aftermath with chilling clarity. They massacred the entire population, sparing neither women nor children. The streets ran with blood, and corpses piled higher than a man's head. The Crusaders slaughtered at will, filling houses with fire and sword. Survivors were dragged into the open, stripped and executed. Some were enslaved, but the Crusaders thought food awaited inside the city. Instead, they found barren pantries and empty granaries. The Muslims had hidden or destroyed their supplies. Winter closed in. Hunger grew desperate. First, they scavenged the horses, slaughtering even prized war mounts for meat. Then came dogs, cats and rats, but even vermin grew scarce. And so, in the ashes of Ma'ara, something unholy stirred. According to Fulcher of Chartres, one of the most respected chroniclers of the First Crusade, the soldiers did the unthinkable. Our men boiled pagan adults in cooking pots. They impaled children on spits and devoured them grilled. This was not the madness of a few isolated men. It was systematic. Bands of Crusaders hunted survivors through the ruins, dragging them to fires. Nobles, it was said, preferred the flesh of adults, seasoned with salt when it could be found. Common soldiers claimed children tasted sweeter, roasting them whole on spits like lambs. Radulf of Caen went further. He described the cannibalism as so widespread that it became a kind of grim market. Groups of knights set up crude kitchens in abandoned houses, boiling cauldrons filled not with soup, but with human limbs. Fresh bodies were butchered like livestock, portions distributed among messes of soldiers. Others roasted torsos over open flames, laughing and boasting as if they were feasting at a banquet. One story tells of knights deliberately fattening captives before killing them, like pigs in a pen. The horror became routine. Hunger had reshaped the Crusaders into predators and Ma'ara's people into prey. Word spread quickly, carried by pilgrims, merchants, and returning knights. Some chroniclers, embarrassed by the stain, tried to downplay it, suggesting only the poorest soldiers resorted to cannibalism. But too many eyewitnesses recorded the same grisly details for it to be dismissed. Radulf admitted it outright. In Ma'ara, our troops boiled pagan adults alive in cooking pots. They impaled children on spits and devoured them. The Muslim historian Ibn al-Athir later confirmed the same, writing that the Christians roasted the dead, even children, and devoured them. The image of Crusaders, the supposed holy warriors of God, gnawing on human bones, horrified even their allies. Papal preachers had promised knights they would be God's avengers, protectors of the innocent. Instead, they became something monstrous. For centuries, Historians argued whether the cannibalism at Ma'ara was propaganda. Could Christians really have done this? But archaeological evidence suggests the chroniclers did not exaggerate. Excavations in Ma'ara reveal bones stripped of flesh, with clear butchery marks. Cut marks on skulls and long bones match those found in prehistoric sites of known cannibalism. Burn patterns show roasting and boiling. The siege of Ma'ara forces us to confront a brutal question. Why did knights sworn to God's service commit such acts? The easy answer is starvation. Hunger has driven human beings to unthinkable extremes throughout history, from shipwrecks to besieged cities. But in Ma'ara, hunger alone cannot explain the systematic nature of the feasting. Some Crusaders likely justified it by dehumanizing their Muslim victims. They were not eating men, but pagans, enemies of God. To consume them was perhaps seen as less a sin than starving. Others may have relished the terror it inspired. The Crusades were psychological as much as physical warfare. What greater message of dominance than to consume your enemies? In a twisted way, it echoed Viking practices of humiliating foes through sexual and physical conquest. Today, the cannibalism of Ma'ara rarely appears in romanticized tales of knights and crusades. It does not fit the shining image of gallant warriors in chainmail, banners flying under the sign of the cross. But it happened. In the ashes of Ma'ara, the mask of holy war slipped, revealing the raw brutality beneath. Crusaders who marched under the promise of eternal salvation found themselves reduced to the oldest, darkest instinct of survival, eating their enemies. The massacre and cannibalism of Ma'ara left scars that lasted generations. In the Muslim world, it became a symbol of Crusader savagery, a memory passed down in chronicles and oral tradition. For the Crusaders, it was a moment of shame buried under victories like the capture of Jerusalem. But whispers persisted, staining their reputation. Even today, when people speak of the First Crusade as a religious triumph, Ma'ara stands as a reminder of what desperation and hatred can breed. They marched to liberate holy ground, but on the fields of Ma'ara they built kitchens of horror. Children roasted on spits, men boiled in cauldrons, women slaughtered for rations. It is one of the darkest footnotes of medieval history, rarely told, but impossible to erase. The Crusaders left Ma'ara with their bellies full, but with souls forever stained.